Hello, I'm Zoe Neville-Smith, Communications Manager at Cambridge International, and I'm part of the team working on our Covid-19 exemptions process. Covid-19 exemptions are a new support measure that give you more flexibility in circumstances where the pandemic has made it difficult for you to prepare your candidates for certain components within particular syllabuses. We've published guidance on how exemptions should be used and what's available, and you can find that on our website. I'm joined by Rachel Bateman, Senior Assessment Advisor, Assessment Standards and Quality. Rachel is going to explain our process for applying for Covid-19 exemptions. Rachel, over to you.
If your candidates need an exemption from a component, you'll need to apply for the exemption before the exam by the 17th of April for the June 2021 exams. I'm now going to walk you through the application form, which I hope will help you when you come to complete it. You can find this application form on the website. Zoe will guide you around the form while I explain each section. Opening up the form then, let's start with your centre number and the centre name. Once your centre number is added, it will auto-fill against every row that you populate in the table. Let's now work through the form. As our working example, let's say you are applying for an exemption from part of Cambridge IGCSE Art and Design. Start by finding the syllabus code, which for Art and Design is 0400. There's a drop-down menu, but you can also enter the syllabus code manually. And the cell will show you a green flag if the code is on our exemptions list, meaning that you can apply for an exemption for particular components in this syllabus. If the syllabus you have typed onto the form is not on our exemptions list, you'll get an error message. You can only apply for a Covid-19 exemption for specific syllabuses and components. We've published the list of the syllabuses and components that are available. If the syllabus isn't on our list, you will not be able to complete the form. I'll show you how to choose the component code shortly. Once you have the syllabus code in the cell, the name and qualification fields will auto-complete. Check it's what you're expecting to see. The option code tells us the route through the syllabus that your candidates had been planning to take. This is the combination of components which would make up their syllabus grade. You can find all the option codes in the Cambridge Guide to Making Entries, which is in the support materials section of Direct. Your exams officer will probably be very familiar with the Cambridge Guide to Making Entries. Please make sure you refer to the correct version of the Cambridge Guide to Making Entries. It needs to be for June 2021 and for your own time zone. This will ensure all the option codes reflect exactly what's available in your time zone. In the case of Art and Design, it's likely you'll be doing option code A, which is where candidates take component 1, the coursework, worth 50%, and component 2, the externally set assignment, which is also worth 50%. So, on the application form, you tell us you're doing option code A. This tells us which components your candidates were going to take. Let's say in this example, some of your candidates have been unable to complete their coursework. They have been remote learning for much of the year, and this hasn't given enough time for them to complete their coursework final outcome in your centre. In this example, you are applying for your candidates to be exempt from Component 1 coursework. So select Component Code 01 from the drop-down menu. From this and the fact that your candidates are doing option A, we can see that you expect them to sit and complete Component 2, which is the externally set assignment. We know that you may not need to apply for an exemption for your full cohort, and for that reason, we're asking you to give a rough indication as to how many candidates are to be exempted from this component. In this example, let's say you have 20 candidates taking Cambridge IGCSE Art and Design. Let's say that some of your candidates were back in school earlier than others and have been working on their coursework, but others returned later, perhaps due to travel restrictions, and haven't had time to do the coursework in school. You can choose to exempt only the affected students from the component they can't take. So, in this example, you might say 8 candidates should be exempted. However, this number isn't final, it's just an indication for us. If that number needs to change later on, that's fine. You do not need to provide any candidate details at this stage, just the estimated number of candidates to be exempted from the component. Finally, we ask you to indicate the reason that your candidates need this exemption, selecting one of the codes that we have given you here on the form. You can see the reason codes on the form here. From talking to schools, we know that most disruption to assessment comes down to 2 factors: lack of access to facilities or equipment during the pandemic, or that the assessment requires the students to work in a way that isn't possible due to COVID-19, for example, in close group work or in teams. The third reason code here is for our literature syllabuses, where schools have missed set texts or topics due to the disruption. In the case of this example, where students haven't been in school to produce coursework, you should select reason code A, lack of access to facilities and equipment, which in this case is because the coursework final outcome needs to be completed in school. That's the row complete. We're asking you to capture all of the exemptions you want to apply for on one form, covering all subjects where exemptions are needed for some or all of your candidates. Of course, the more of the assessments your candidates can take, the more opportunity they will have to show us what they can do. You should be aware that if a candidate has an exemption and then misses one of the components they were planning to take, if they're ill or isolating at the time of the exam, we might not have sufficient evidence to calculate and award an assessed mark, and there's a risk they wouldn't get a grade at all. Once you have completed the form, you need to send it to your head of centre or equivalent authority, and they need to sign it by adding their name and the date where indicated. This signature confirms that these exemptions are necessary and that you as a centre accept the risks associated with opting out of assessed components. You then need to email the form to us. Please send it to covidexemptions@cambridgeinternational.org with the subject line COVID-19 exemptions, June 2021. We will process your application as quickly as we can and hope to confirm whether your application is accepted within 7 working days. As I mentioned at the beginning, you have until the 17th of April to apply for COVID-19 exemptions for the June 2021 series. I hope you have found this helpful and that our COVID-19 exemptions give you more flexibility to adapt to some of the challenges of the past year. If you have any questions about our exemptions process, please email our main email address, info@cambridgeinternational.org.
Thank you, Rachel. For all of the latest information about how we are supporting schools during the pandemic, please visit cambridgeinternational.org/COVID.